this was part of the beginnings of Christmas trees in South Carolina. Dr. Schoenike had all kind of, Mr. Tom, they had all kind of stuff in here experimenting with it. None of it, very little of it panned out. And Dr. Schoenike brought the Leighton Green, Leyland, back here. And maybe not the, but one of the first ones that was in the field in the southeast was planted here.
Wow.
And then shortly after that, some were planted at a state forester, Mr. Marvin Gaffney's farm. Sapphires and green spires pretty much were born here.
Stuart, he had a buddy that worked with some kind of nursery or something.
Yes, sir. His buddy's name was a war buddy. His name was Doug Malcolm. He worked for Musser.
Okay.
Which, as far as I know, is still in operation. They planted straight Arizonas. Is one of the ones they planted in test plot. I think I had to cut the last one down last year. But they planted some straight Arizonas and all kind of firs, spruces, all kind of exotic stuff that didn't even make it through the first winter, much less summer. Fraser firs, we tried those way back in the day.
Okay.
Blue spruce.
Concolors.
Canines, we tried them all. Koreans, everything you could imagine, we've tried.
Did you try Momi back then?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, had Momi. But back then they didn't have that fancy new name.
Tell me about the first Leyland Cypress that was sold.
Some guy that plays golf that's named Arnold Palmer.
And he begged Mr. Tom for it.
Yeah.
He didn't.
And by where I stand, I'll get that picture out. I have it. By our standards today, it wasn't really that pretty a tree.
He took it to Florida? Is that right?
Yes,
Yeah.
took it to Florida.
What year was it?
Wow.
What year was this?
63, 64.
Lincoln's been around long.
So it was before you opened?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's a controversy as to when we first opened here. Mr. Tom always said 67. Big Judy and my Judy always said 69.
Okay.
And I have a newspaper article over there that says 64 or 5. When we first started off, we didn't have Benekes and sages and all that kind of good stuff. When we first started off, we all used knives. And
Wow.
yeah, they all use knives. And for anybody that knows anything about that, can you imagine trying to prune a Scotch pine with a knife?
No.
Believe it or not, South Carolina at one time had a booming wholesale business.
Wow.
That was before our neighbors figured out how to grow those firs.
I was waiting on that.
Top, how many acres in production at the peak?
In the wholesale days, about 250.
250?
Something like that. In the peak of it, I've seen some of the old records. I got to try to find them again. In the peak of the wholesale days, we were wholesaling about 7,000, 7,500 wholesale, and then retailing another 5 or 5,500.
What was that? Cedar and Virginia pine? Cedar and white pine? Or?
Cedar, white pine, Virginia pine.
Okay.
You recording this, I guess.
Yeah, just for fun.
Yeah.